Hey there, welcome to the channel. So today I want to talk a little bit about this issue with the really high power bills in Texas. So here I'm on the Hill, and they have an article about this. So I guess what's happening because of they had the winter storms and everything, and they lost a lot of power supply on their grid basically. So it turns out that people are getting in a situation where they're getting these huge electric bills. So here, if we look at this article from The Hill, they're saying they're getting massive electric bills following the winter chaos. They're getting some people getting bills as high as $10,000. One man's bill shows he owes more than 17,000. And it's really that in and of itself doesn't really mean anything, but this is what it is. It's the delta here, right? So this guy, Jose, told NBC News that the bill for his two-bedroom home is usually between 125 and 150 a month, but this month, the bill exceeded 3,000. Okay, so you have a delta. If you're used to in budgeting for like 125, 150, and maybe like in the summer, you're like, okay, in Texas where it gets hot, you expect that to double or even more, and then it goes to 3,000. It's like, yeah, that's pretty messed up. So the other thing they talk about here is they talk about that Giddy is this state provider or some person here. He's talking about he recommended that customers switch to a different provider this week, warning them to find fixed rate plans instead, as it predicted the climbing cost of electricity due to spiking demand. But many customers who tried to switch said their companies were not accepting new customers until weeks into the future. So, okay, so what's going on here, and I'm in California, pardon me. So here, I'm going to just switch over to the other thing here. We are going to share, going to go over here. Yeah, so I'm in California, and we don't really have this, but I did live in Florida before, and at that time, now that was some time ago, you could basically pick your power plan. So apparently, is what they're talking about in Texas is that you can have a choice of different power plans. So basically, instead of like I live in California in a city, and there's this one provider, that's who it is. But in these other states, like I know Florida was like this. You could pick the power supplier. There might be 10 different people that you can pick your power plan, who's going to provide power to you. And so apparently, what it turns out is that they have basically fixed plans and variable plans. And so what it sounds like, based on this article that I was reading, that very article there, is this is happening to the people that have these variable plans. And so I imagine what it is going on is that, well, if you agree to a variable plan where you're basically somewhat exposed to the market price for electricity. If you do that, in general, most of the time, you're paying a lot less for electricity, so you're saving money. But herein is the problem, right? Here is the problem. It's like the average person, maybe can deal with being exposed to the price fluctuations like that, but they really can't deal with the price going up 10x. It's just like, I mean, if you normally pay 150 or $300 for power in a week, and I'm sorry, in a month, and it goes up to 3,000, like, you're kidding. You just can never, or it goes to 17,000, like, you can never pay that. So and then when you realize that that's happening or maybe happening, so apparently there is some talk of like people are like, oh, well, you should probably switch your plan to a fixed plan, right? Okay, but then you're not allowed to switch. Companies weren't accepting people switching into their plans. So basically, you can imagine that if you're provider B and you offer a fixed plan where your customers aren't going to get screwed over for $17,000 in a single month on a 3-bedroom house, When you see the price spike going on, you're probably not accepting new people to your plan, right? You're going to try to avoid that because you realize you're just, you're kind of screwed. So I think, so this is definitely something that's messed up. And I want to talk about it from the perspective of, government and political philosophies. So let's look at it this way. So I tend to lean more towards being more of a free market kind of person, more maybe a little libertarian-ish. But from a theoretical point of view, I'm not delusional in that I understand that, like, uh, if you there's a practical aspect to these things. Like if you took a pure Ron Paul and tried to implement that, I suspected it would be a disaster. But from a theoretical point of view, to try to limit the government is, like, to me, a very reasonable thing to do, because very often if the government gets involved, it can make things worse. I mean, history kind of shows that, but that's another thing. So here we have a situation. Then we have these people that have picked these variable plans, and they are in a situation where they're like, this never happened before to them, for sure. And they probably were getting the benefit of it. But on the other hand, they're getting this exposure now to these huge increases in their power bill. And so this is kind of like a free market thing. And so now the question is, well, is, the free market bad? Is this, I mean, this is to the point, like, look, if I had a $17,000 bill, and even if I had the money, would I go spend the money on it? I mean, I don't know. I would consider being like, no, screw you. I'm not going to pay. I mean, I'm not going to go into my bank account and take $17,000 out of there that I'm planning for a kid's college or whatever, and be like, I'm going to send it to the electric company. I mean, it just makes no sense, right? It makes no sense from a financial point of view. Now, the problem is they're going to shut your power off. Okay, so then you need to find a way to deal with that. Now, it depends on your situation. I mean, generally, even doing things like solar and stuff like that isn't going to be as reliable, and normally you need to stay on the grid. But so the point is, it's like, it's a real big mess. So some people would go and say, like the Bernie Sanders and the AOC types, who say, well, this is why we got to regulate the crap out of this. We shouldn't allow this to occur. And then, and then in this kind of a case, the more libertarian free market types would be like, they kind of just hide, right? They kind of hide and kind of avoid the issue, or the fact that, well, the free market did kind of work the way it's supposed to. The point is, there wasn't enough power near, so the price had to keep going up. But here's where the problem that I see with it. The thing is, the free market price signals only work if you have a choice to pay or not to pay, right? So here's the thing. It only works if you have a choice. Like, the problem is, people are looking at their bills and seeing this, and, it's after the fact. Now, maybe they had a real-time app that could tell them, like, okay, your power rate is this right now, but it's not really clear. It's not really clear, and that may not be the case. Like, for me, I'm not hooked into a real-time app to know exactly what I'm paying. I just have to wait till I get the bill for the month, right? And when I get the bill, then I'm like, what the heck is going on? Or I have to log in, and I don't even think I have that. So here's the problem. The problem is, the free market really can't work if I don't have a choice. If I don't know what I'm being asked to pay, then I can't make a decision whether I want to pay that or not. So the point then becomes like, well, what's the solution to this? Well, you can't have a pure free market power system then, unless people have an actual method to make a decision whether to pay that or not. And so if they don't have that, then you can't charge that kind of thing. It's just not going to work. And, this will be another situation in the current climate where it's like, okay, look, we can't have the free market at all. We need the government to regulate, and the government will come in there and they'll screw it up. And yes, they will fix the problem in terms of people will not get $17,000 electric bills. They will not have their electric bill go from $300 to $17,000. Yeah, they'll fix that. But then, we will be in a situation where, like, I was in California when they had these rolling brownouts back, Gray Davis and all that crap. And a lot of that was artificial. But the point is, that's kind of what you'll end up getting, because basically they will screw it up to the point where you will lose the supply and you won't have enough supply. That's just how it works. So what is the real solution to this? Well, that's a really good question. It's really hard to come up with real solutions for these things. I mean, I think that you have to have like, look, you can't offer people plans they have to have a cap on the plan. So basically you have to say, look at, and this really should be like the free market should kind of be doing this. Like if you're a power company and you're going to say, hey, I'm going to offer you a plan where I'll offer you just whatever the current market rate is for the power and over with the tiniest markup. And like, that, like you're kind of smarter than that. You should kind of know that this, like, people aren't going to be able to pay that if the price does what it does. I mean, the problem is, I don't know. I guess you need to kind of regulate it in some way. You need to say, look, you got to put a cap on it. You got to cap what the max is and the min is. I mean, they do this with variable rate mortgages and stuff. They'll have a cap of, the maximum the rate can go up for your mortgage on any year and then overall lifetime. So at least you have some idea, and the caps will be somewhat high. Like, for example, you could get a mortgage and it might be variable and they'll cap at like 2% per year, but that's a lot. I mean, to be like, oh, you started out paying 2% for your mortgage and it went to 4% this year, and then it might have a lifetime cap of 10%. Well, a 10% mortgage is a pretty crappy mortgage, but that normally doesn't happen. It's a very rare event, but at least you have a cap on it. So this is kind of, this thing in Texas with the power bills is definitely a mess. The thing is, if you need the price signal, people need to be able to make a choice, and people can't make a choice if they don't have a price. And this is what really aggravates me too about medical stuff. Like if you're out there and you try to like go pay for things yourself, like it's just a mess. They charge you insane rates. And then if you're with insurance and you like, for very many things, like you're like sitting there and like, okay, I'm signing a paper that says I agree to pay. And like, and it's fine. It's saying like your insurance is going to pay, but you agree to pay whatever insurance doesn't pay. And you're like, well, I hope my insurance pays. And I read all this stuff in my insurance. It seems like it'll be okay. But you have to, like, very often you have to sign this stuff and you still don't know. They can't even tell you what you're going to pay. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. They're like, well, I'm sorry, we can't tell you. Like, they're literally like, we can't tell you what we're going to charge you. And so that is a mess. Like, that is wrong. Like free market doesn't work when you're not giving me the price signals. I have to know what I'm going to pay. And then it has to contractually, you have to stick to it. And so right now, that's one of the biggest problems with what's going on. And this thing in the TexasPower situation is an example of that. Like, did people know? Did they really understand? Did they know? Was there a way for them to know that, like, oh my gosh, yesterday I got charged $1,000 to just heat my house? You're freaking kidding me, right? I mean, it's just, it makes no sense. And it makes no sense from a purely free market situation as well. I mean, is that how you treat your customers? Like, if you look at this and said, hey, so yeah, let's look at it from a pure free market point of view. If you're sitting there and you're one of these power providers that had a bill, the bills went up because our blah 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 plan, you're going to be in the doghouse, right? You're going to lose your customers because it's a stupid thing. I mean, you're going to piss me off if you do something like that, where my power bill can go up from $300 to $3,000 in any given month. I mean, that's just ludicrous, right? So I mean, maybe that's the solution to the problem. Maybe the free market will be that will kind of handle it in some respect, because people will be like, well, I'm not going to buy a stupid plan like that again. I mean, it's crazy, right? And that may be the solution, but what might happen will be more kind of insidious. There'll probably be government control, this, that, and the other thing, and whether it will be effective or not, I just don't know. I mean, didn't we learn from Enron? Enron had all this crap going on. The rate you're paying for power is changing on a minute-to-minute basis, and why should it be that way? I don't know. I mean, I guess it sort of works. Basically, it works some of the time and most of the time, and then you have these extreme events where it just totally breaks down. So yeah, so it's a big mess. I assume that, I guess, and this isn't financial advice, but if I had a bill like that, I would just probably, I would very seriously consider, like, I'm not going to pay, and I'm going to, and first I would be looking for class action lawsuit. I'm not a big legal guy, but like, it's just, a situation is so out of control that, I guess I wouldn't be in the situation, to be honest. I kind of would look at it and kind of be like, I don't want variable rate. I don't want to be, I just want to kind of, like, I'm like an engineer kind of guy, so I want a smoothed out rate. I mean, it's funny. I do these engineering, and I'm dealing with power and electronics. And what when you're doing that is, like, you have this instantaneous power as something switches, and it's this huge spikes in power, but then you average them out over time. So I don't want the spike. I mean, I know enough to know I don't want to be charged for these little spikes that are actually not necessarily a lot of energy. It's not like it's a lot of energy. And so the price signals in the free market can only work if you have the choice to say, no, I'm not going to pay that. I'm not buying it. That's the only way. Then people know what they're paying for something. So if you have a system where they don't know what they're paying for it, then it doesn't work. So I think that's it. That's it for this one. Bye.